What happens when a self-made CEO goes undercover as a dishwasher and watches a manager tell staff to serve spoiled food? Brice stared at the customer review on his laptop, the words punching him in the chest. Found mold on my bread. Manager laughed it off and said, it's natural. Never coming back. He built this diner chain from a food truck 10 years ago. 11 locations strong now, but lately, customer complaints had been creeping in, especially from the Riverside branch. He'd never worked at that one personally. Hired a new manager last year and trusted his district manager's word that everything's running smooth. But this wasn't smooth. This was disgusting. Mason didn't want another filtered report. He wanted the truth. So he made a call to the HR head, said he was running a trial for kitchen hires under a false name, Matt, and had himself inserted as a temp dishwasher at the Riverside location. They wouldn't recognize him. The staff turnover had been high there. Most of them had never met the founder. And the disguise helped shaggy brown hair, tinted glasses, and a beard he'd grown the last few weeks. He walked in on a rainy Monday morning, duffel bag over his shoulder. The place smelled like grease and old fryer oil. Not good. A cook with tired eyes called out from the back. You the new guy? Dishwasher. Yeah, Matt, Mason replied, voice low.
Cool. I'm Curtis.
You'll be back here. We're short 2 dish guys, so it's gonna be rough. How come? Mason asked while tying his apron. Curtis shrugged. One quit last week. Other one got sick, bad food or something. We've been slammed. Mason kept his head down and worked. Plates stacked endlessly. Grease coated everything. The sprayer was broken. His hands were burning from the cheap soap. But what hit him hardest was how miserable everyone looked. No music. No jokes. Just silence and stress. Midway through the lunch rush, a young woman dropped off another stack of plates. She looked exhausted. I'm Olivia.
Prep line.
Don't let Rico see you slow down. He doesn't care if your fingers fall off. Rico. Shift manager, she said, eyes darting toward the front.
He's
not the nicest. Mason saw Rico soon after. Mid-40s, tall, loud. He barked orders like he was in a boot camp. Chop faster, Olivia. We're behind. Olivia didn't say anything. Just lowered her head and kept slicing. After the rush ended, Mason took a breath and stepped outside for a quick break. Olivia followed, lighting a cigarette with shaky hands. You okay? Mason asked. She exhaled. I'm used to it. Been here a year. I need the paycheck. Mason wanted to ask more, but Rico came outside, sipping an energy drink. We got a problem, he said, not even acknowledging Mason. Fridge went out again. Some of the meat's borderline. Should we toss it? Olivia asked.
Rico scoffed. No. Just keep the worst stuff in the back.
Shift it under the fresh trays. Don't say anything to the customers. They won't know. Mason froze. You serious? Olivia said. You want hours next week? Rico shot back. Then do what I say. She didn't respond. Just looked at the ground. Rico turned to Mason. You hear something? Mason shook his head, playing dumb. But inside he was boiling. Later that afternoon, Mason watched as Olivia quietly pulled aside a tray of grayish chicken. She whispered to the cook, Don't use this one, please. The cook nodded, clearly uncomfortable. Mason walked over to her during cleanup. Why don't you just report him? Olivia looked at him like he didn't understand anything. To who? His buddy's the district manager. Last girl who complained got her hours cut to nothing. Mason clenched his jaw. That's not right. She smiled sadly. That's how it is here. Rico came around the corner again. You two done chatting like high schoolers? Matt, get back to scrubbing. Olivia, clean the slicer. It's filthy. They both moved. Mason finished his shift feeling sick, not from the work, but from what he'd seen. Employees scared to speak up. Food being hidden from customers. and a manager who ruled through fear. That night, he sat in his car across the street, watching the lights go off in the restaurant. He'd seen enough to know this wasn't just a one-off. It was a culture problem. And tomorrow, he'd dig deeper. The next morning, Mason arrived early before sunrise. The interior lights flickered on with a faint buzz as he stepped into the back. Curtis was already there, hunched over a prep table with a box of wilted lettuce and a cracked cutting board. "Fridge still busted," Curtis muttered without looking up. "I told Rico yesterday. He said not to bother calling maintenance." Mason set down his duffel quietly, watching Curtis pull out the least brown leaves and toss the rest into a trash bag that was already half full of discarded produce. "How long's it been like this?" Curtis gave a tired laugh. "Week and a half. Maybe 2. Not my call. I just chop what they tell me to." Mason nodded and got to work. The morning shift was slow, just prep and cleaning before the breakfast rush. But it gave him time to observe. An older employee he hadn't seen the day before walked in around 6. She moved slower than everyone else, her legs stiff, a noticeable brace on her wrist. She nodded at Curtis and started setting up the coffee station. "Who's she?" Mason asked quietly. "Teresa," Curtis said. "Been here longer than anyone. Works openers. Wrists from carpal tunnel, I think. She asked Rico to switch her to register, so she wouldn't have to lift as much. He said if she can't carry trays, she can go home." Mason's jaw tightened. Teresa didn't complain, just kept working, one-handed at times, balancing mugs in her good arm. No one offered to help. It was like everyone had learned not to. By 7, the kitchen started filling up. Olivia came in just before the line got busy. Her eyes were red, and she moved stiffly, like she hadn't slept. She didn't talk, just tied her apron and started sorting vegetables for the omelets. Mason was scrubbing pans when Rico walked in, sunglasses on despite the dim kitchen lights. "All right, listen up," Rico said loud enough to echo. "Health inspectors coming Thursday. That means no screw-ups this week. No expired labels, no leaking containers, and for God's sake, clean behind the damn fryer." He looked straight at Mason. "That means you, new guy. You miss a spot, I'll have you out of here before lunch." Mason didn't respond. Rico turned his attention to Olivia. "Where's the hash brown tray?" "Still baking," Olivia said without looking up. He stepped closer. "It should have been in 20 minutes ago. I started it at 6:40. It needs 10 more." Rico leaned in, lowering his voice just enough to make it more threatening. "Don't get clever with me. You're not here to argue. You're here to follow directions." Curtis stepped in from the side. "She's right. I saw the timer." Rico turned on him. "You want to be responsible for breakfast going out late?" Curtis didn't answer. Mason felt his stomach twist. The threat wasn't about food. It was about control. By lunch, things turned chaotic again. Orders piled up. The fryer shorted once. The line cook dropped a tray of chicken fingers on the floor. Rico saw it but said nothing when the guy scooped them back into the tray and put them under the heat lamp. Mason caught Olivia's eye. She looked nauseous. He found her later during a short lull, reloading the salad bar. "Why didn't you stop him?" She looked around. "Because he'd just tell me to mind my own station. And if I push, I lose hours. That's how it works here." "Has anyone gone to corporate?" She snorted. "You think corporate listens? They just forward it to Rico's buddy, and then suddenly you're getting written up for being negative or not a team player." Mason nodded slowly. "What about Teresa? She looks like she's in pain."
She is.
"But she's scared. She's got no one else. Her husband died last year. This job's her only income." Mason was silent for a moment. "What about you?" "My mom's sick. I'm covering her rent and meds. I tried quitting once, but the next place didn't have enough hours. So I stayed." A door slammed across the kitchen, and they both jumped. Rico was yelling again, this time at one of the teenage runners, a quiet kid who just dropped a tray of sodas near the customer entrance. You want to ruin our floors? You think this is some daycare? Rico shouted, face inches from the boys. I'll clean it, the boy stammered. You'll do what I say when I say it. And if I see one more mistake, you're gone. You understand me? The boy nodded quickly, eyes wide. Curtis stepped forward. He's been here 3 days, Rico. Cut him some slack. You don't tell me what to do.
Rico snapped.
The entire kitchen froze. Olivia backed up slowly, muttering something under her breath. Mason set down the plate he was cleaning and turned to Rico. He's a kid. You don't need to scream at him. Rico stared at him. Excuse me? You heard me. Rico stepped closer. You think you've earned the right to tell me how to run this place? You've been here, what, 2 days? Mason didn't back down. Long enough to know this isn't how you treat people. Rico laughed. You think I care what some temp dishwasher thinks? You're nothing here. Mason held his gaze, but said nothing else. Not yet. Rico stormed off, muttering as he disappeared into the office. The kitchen stayed quiet for a full minute before anyone moved. That night, Mason stayed late to help close. Curtis looked over as they wiped down the grill. You didn't have to step in like that. Someone had to, Mason said. Curtis nodded slowly. You're not like the others. Most folks just keep their heads down. I'm not here forever, Mason replied carefully. But while I'm here, I'm not going to watch people get trashed for doing their best. Curtis hesitated. You know, before Rico, this place wasn't like this. We had a manager named Dee. She ran it tight, but fair. People stayed. We had regulars. Then corporate moved her to a different location and put Rico in. Things fell apart fast. Why didn't they bring Dee back?
No idea.
Rico's friend got promoted around then.
District guy.
Keeps covering for him. Mason nodded, his mind already racing. As they finished closing, Mason watched Teresa slowly mop the front lobby, her wrist trembling with every stroke. She didn't complain. Just finished her section, clocked out, and limped toward the door. He caught up to her outside. Need a ride? She looked surprised, then shook her head.
I'm all right.
Bus is coming. You sure? She smiled faintly. You're a good kid. Don't let this place change that. Mason watched her walk toward the stop, her figure small under the amber streetlight. He'd seen enough. Not just mismanagement, but cruelty.
And fear.
Tomorrow, he'd return not as Matt, but as Mason Brice. And he would put an end to it. By 7:30 the next morning, Mason waited just outside the Riverside location in a black coat and clean jeans. No apron, no duffel. A light drizzle made the sidewalk glisten. He didn't hesitate as he unlocked the front door with his master key, stepped inside, and quietly walked past the empty booths toward the kitchen. Curtis looked up from the prep table and froze. Mason gave a nod. Morning, Curtis. Curtis's brows pulled together. Wait. I'm Mason Brice. Curtis dropped the knife he was holding. Steam hissed from the nearby griddle as the kitchen began to stir. Olivia walked in from the back cooler, slowed when she saw Mason, then stopped completely. She looked from him to Curtis, then back again, her eyes narrowing. You're the owner, she said slowly. Mason didn't answer right away. He looked to the corner office first, where Rico's jacket was already slung over the chair. I need everyone off the floor for 5 minutes, Mason said.
Right now.
Curtis turned off the prep timer. Olivia set her container down. Even a line cook, who'd just entered, backed away from the burners. They gathered awkwardly near the back wall, watching. Mason walked to the office and pushed the door open without knocking. Rico was on his phone, sipping coffee. He looked up, confused. Who? Mason Brice, Mason said. Founder.
I saw.
Rico's mouth opened, but no words came. Get up. Still stunned, Rico rose from his chair slowly, like he wasn't sure if it was a prank. Mason stepped back into the kitchen, Rico trailing behind him. The rest of the staff stood still, silent. Some of you know me. Most probably don't, Mason said. I started this company from a truck. I've scrubbed pans, served tables, and mopped floors. And the last 3 days I've done it again. Right here. He turned to Rico. I've watched you threaten people, ignore serious equipment failures, and tell staff to serve food that should have been thrown out. I've seen you shout at a teenager for spilling a drink and dismiss a woman working through chronic pain. Rico raised his hands slightly. All right, hold on, no, Mason said. You don't speak right now. Rico dropped his hands. This isn't just poor management, Mason continued. This is endangering customers, violating health codes, and running this team into the ground. He turned to Olivia. You were right. Reporting anything would have gone nowhere. I've seen how complaints disappear. That ends today. He looked back at Rico. You're done. Effective immediately. You don't finish your shift, you don't speak to anyone. I need your keys and your badge. Rico hesitated, glancing around. No one spoke for him. I'll call district, I already did, Mason said. Before I came in this morning. You're not protected. Rico slowly removed the key ring from his belt and placed it on the prep table. He set down his badge without a word, then turned and walked toward the exit. The door clicked shut behind him. Mason let the silence hang for a moment longer.
Curtis, he said.
You're acting kitchen lead for now. Full authority until we appoint someone permanent. Olivia, I want you at the front register today. I've already sent someone to cover your line spot. Olivia blinked. Wait, what? You need a break from that station. And Teresa, when she comes in, she's front of house only from now on. No more lifting trays. Curtis's voice was cautious. What about the fridge? Repair crews outside. They'll be in within the hour. Everything spoiled gets tossed. No exceptions. We'll comp anything we run short on. The employees glanced at each other, unsure whether to believe it yet. Mason looked around the room. We're going to earn back every customer we lost. But that starts here. No more shortcuts. No more fear. He stepped aside. Back to work. I'll be here all day. The kitchen didn't cheer. They didn't clap. But they moved with a different energy. Curtis rolled up his sleeves and returned to his cutting board. Olivia headed toward the front, still looking slightly dazed. The line cook relit the burners. By 10, the dining room started to fill. Mason stood behind the counter as Olivia rang up a young couple and a toddler. She spoke gently, offering a kid's cup and crayons before the woman even asked. Mason leaned over. You've got good instincts. She glanced at him. You really meant it? About Teresa? She shouldn't be lifting anything heavier than a coffee pot, Mason said. And she won't again. Teresa arrived just before 11, her wrist wrapped tighter than the day before. When Mason approached her in the side hallway and told her she'd be on register only, her eyes welled before she turned away quickly. You all right? He asked. She nodded. I just wasn't expecting anyone to notice. Mason didn't press. He simply handed her a fresh name tag and walked her to the counter. By late afternoon, word had spread. A few regulars who hadn't been in for weeks returned. One of them, a retired postman, made a joke about the coffee finally tasting like coffee again. In the kitchen, the atmosphere was tighter, focused. Curtis kept things moving, and for the first time, no one flinched when a mistake happened: a dropped spatula, a missed ticket. Corrections were made calmly. No yelling. A woman in slacks and a company lanyard arrived around 4. She made a beeline for Mason near the back. Eva, she said quietly.
HR.
I got your message. I've got Rico's file and the incident reports you asked for. Anything on his friend at district? More than a few irregularities. Scheduling abuse. Selective penalties. I've started the paperwork. Keep it going, Mason said. We'll review every location they touched. Eva nodded and left through the back. As dinner began, a new hire from a different store arrived to help cover the dish station. Mason stepped aside and let him take over. He washed his hands, grabbed a mop, and started working the lobby floors. When Olivia passed by with a tray of drinks, she paused. "You don't have to do that." "I know," Mason said. "But I built this place with this mop. Sometimes it helps to remember." A few minutes later, Curtis came out from the kitchen with a fresh plate of fries. "Guy at table 7 says he used to eat here every Friday. Says it feels different today. Better." Mason took a long breath. "Good. That's the goal." Curtis lowered his voice. "You staying long?" "Just a night. Then I'll be back next week." Unannounced. Curtis grinned. "I'll keep the fridge spotless." Mason gave him a look. "That shouldn't depend on me showing up." Curtis nodded. "Fair." As the evening wound down, Mason stood near the front, watching Olivia laugh at something a customer said. Teresa worked the coffee machine slowly but steadily. The new dishwasher loaded trays without being rushed. When the doors finally closed and the last guest left, Mason gathered the team near the counter. "You all did more than survive today," he said. "You rebuilt trust. One order at a time. And I saw every bit of it." He handed Curtis a sealed envelope. "That's a temporary pay bump while we sort out the management structure." Curtis opened it just enough to see the number, then carefully folded it and slid it into his pocket without a word. Mason turned to Olivia. "Same for you. And next week, we'll talk about full-time lead position. If you want it." She looked stunned. Yes. I'd want that. And Teresa's getting full benefits starting this month," Mason added. "She's earned it 10 times over." No one clapped. No one shouted. But the silence was warm this time.
Solid.
Mason picked up his coat and walked to the door. Before stepping out, he turned back. "If you ever see things slipping again, whether I'm here or not, you speak up. You don't wait for someone else to fix it." He opened the door, paused once more, then left into the cool night air. Inside, the staff slowly returned to their tasks, but with a quiet steadiness. No fear. No whispers. Just work. The kind that built businesses worth keeping. A week later, Mason parked across from the Riverside Diner again, this time arriving just after the lunch wave. The sky was overcast, a soft gray that made everything feel quiet. He didn't walk in immediately. He sat in his car for a few minutes, watching the front window, watching who came and went. Inside, the rhythm was different. He entered through the front this time. A young man at the register greeted him, face tense until Olivia stepped forward from the back and gave a quick nod. "He's good," she told the cashier. "That's Mason." The young man gave a nervous smile and stepped aside. Mason looked around. Booths were filled, but not chaotic. The floor was clean. No stray trays. The coffee station had been reorganized. Nothing fancy, just efficient. He stepped toward the back, giving quiet nods to a few guests who recognized him from his last visit. Curtis was at the expo window, checking plates before they left the kitchen. He didn't notice Mason at first, too focused on the timing of the breakfast skillet going out with the lunch sandwich. "You're running it tight," Mason said. Curtis turned, startled, then gave a quick breath. "Didn't know you were coming today." "Didn't want you to," Mason said. "How's the crew?" Curtis wiped his hands on his apron. "Still short-staffed, but Olivia's covering doubles until you approve the new hire. We're managing. Not ideal, but no one's burning out." He paused. "We had 2 walk-ins apply yesterday. Said they heard things turned around." Mason walked into the prep area. The fridge had been replaced with a newer unit, labels on every container, clear and recent.
No odor. No stands.
The air was cool and dry, how it should feel. "Teresa working today?" Mason asked. "Half shift. She opens now, then clocks out before the dinner rush."
That was her request.
Said she'd rather work early than not at all. She get her benefits packet? Last Friday. HR called to confirm she signed it. Mason leaned against the wall near the dry storage shelves. What about the kid Rico yelled at? Still here. Evan. He's on weekends now. Said his mom didn't want him working during the week until school's out. Fair call. Mason nodded. Good. Curtis lowered his voice. You want to hear something off the record? Always. Olivia's been coaching him. Quietly. On breaks. Helping him figure out the POS system and how to handle stress. No one asked her to. You think she's ready for lead? She's already doing it. Just without the title. Mason straightened up. Let's fix that now. He walked out toward the front where Olivia was wiping down the pastry case. Her hair was tied back, sleeves rolled up, and her focus didn't break until he was directly beside her. You have a minute? Yeah, she said, setting the cloth aside. He motioned toward one of the booths near the window, away from the others. She sat across from him, still a little guarded. You've been running things since I left. Curtis says you're keeping the team steady. That true? I'm just trying to make sure everyone gets through the day without breaking. I'm promoting you officially. Kitchen lead, starting today. New pay grade. Full-time status. I'll have HR send the paperwork. She blinked. Just like that.
No, not just like that.
Because you earned it. Quietly. Consistently. When it wasn't safe to stick your neck out, you still did. She looked out the window, then back at him. Can I ask something? Of course. Why didn't you come sooner? Before things got that bad. Mason didn't flinch. Because I was listening to the wrong people. I got too comfortable trusting filters instead of facts. That's on me. She didn't say anything for a few seconds. You going to all the stores? Eventually. Quietly. No one's getting a heads up.
She leaned back.
That'll scare a lot of managers. Good. If they're nervous, they probably should be. He stood and offered his hand. She took it, firm grip. You'll need support, he said. So, if you see someone ready to move up, tell me. We're rebuilding from the inside. Back in the kitchen, the line was starting to pick up. A family with 3 kids had just been seated, and Curtis was already calling tickets. Mason helped run a few orders, not in charge, just moving trays, pouring drinks, making sure the line didn't jam. He didn't draw attention to himself.
He just blended in.
At one point, Evan came in with a to-go order slip. He didn't see Mason, just handed it to the cook and stepped aside. His shoulders weren't hunched. He looked focused. Mason watched as Olivia gave him a quiet nod from the register window. He smiled back. Later that afternoon, Mason met with Eva from HR in the break room. The district manager who protected Rico has been suspended pending formal review, she said. There's a pattern of favoritism and suppression of staff complaints across at least 3 stores. Are we seeing the same issues at those locations? Not as bad, but we've scheduled audits. I've also created a direct reporting channel, anonymous, no routing through district. Good. Keep it live. And make sure the staff knows it's real. Eva handed him a folder. Also, I confirmed that Curtis declined the full manager role. Said he prefers hands-on, not office work.
He mentioned that.
I'm okay with it. She hesitated, then added, he asked if we could add a paid closing lead role. Said there's a guy from another store who might be a good fit. Tell him to send the name. If the guy's solid, we'll make it happen. When she left, Mason remained in the break room alone. He looked at the old cork board where staff schedules had been posted, now updated with digital printouts and a suggestion list pinned beside it. One note read, "Can we get a better mop? This one leaks down the handle." Another said, "More gloves, please." All minor things, but they were writing them now. That mattered. Before leaving, Mason walked through the kitchen one last time. Dishes clattered into the sink, timers buzzed, voices called orders, but the tension was gone. People moved with purpose, not panic. Outside, the street was quiet. The drizzle had stopped. Mason stood at the curb and looked back once more through the glass. A customer near the window was laughing at something Olivia said. Curtis was visible through the pass, wiping down a countertop. Even Evan was smiling as he carried a tray to a booth. Mason turned toward his car. He didn't need to come back tomorrow. Not unless they called him. But he'd be watching. Always. And next time, he wouldn't wait so long.